that week because I know there's gonna be at least 3 shows a day from the 5th to the 14th.
That y'all are doing on your own, or that you're working with other people?
No, I'm talking about wrestling shows. There's
Oh,
these 3 shows.
the watch. Okay, yeah.
Oh my god! So like that Saturday, Impact is holding a pay-per-view the same night as Night 1.
Well, yeah, I saw that doing. Why would they do that though?
Well, you know what? In the traditional sense, it's like, oh man, that's stupid. But you also got to look at it this way: everybody's got a smartphone, an iPad, a TV, so they can watch both.
Yeah. That's kind of. But see, it isn't the same. But you know, when Crockett and them tried to do the shows up against Man, you know, they screwed themselves up. You know, so I don't know if Impact is on that level yet. If they want to try that, but especially I can see if you was doing that if you had the Omega. They're not doing that's not till April that they're doing the.
It's that WrestleMania is right in between that pay-per-view. I'm like, these guys are genius.
They're not doing the Omega Swan match that night, are they?
Nah. Yeah, it's 2 weeks after.
Okay, that's what I figured. Like, yeah, but you know, I don't know. Wow, but
I saw it. I was like, what the? Damn it! Another thing to cover. Oh man.
Well, yeah, you better get your screens out, man. This
like right now. So I got my TV on.
Yeah, so I got. That's right, and it's wrestling on now, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm watching Elevation. I'll watch it later to do my review and tweet and everything. And then I have my TV on USA. So as soon as I'm finished with this, I can just turn around and look at Raw. And I got my notepad here.
March Madness is not limited to basketball. It's crazy.
Oh man.
And that's why we got our man Dedrian back on. It's been a little bit, but glad to catch up with you for another session.
Thank you.
Monday Night WARR here on the Varsity Show special. And glad to be back on Facebook and everything. And we just hanging out here for about another half hour or so leading up to Raw. And after that, I got Larry Hawley on from WGN. He's going to talk to me about the tournament, talk to me about his Illini losing to Loyola and all that wildness in the tournament and all the wildness in Chicago sports in general. But right now we're doing our wrestling thing. And Dedrian was just hipping me to all the TV watching, all the wrestling watching he's going to do in a couple weeks for Mania week. But WrestleMania, like, it's the thing, like with WrestleMania, it's become this whole event thing. Like, it's almost like a convention of wrestling, because all the other promotions, the lower promotions, you would say, or indie promotions, I should say, they're not doing it so much this year, I guess, because of the restrictions. But in the last several years, all these other promotions would go to the site of WrestleMania and do their own shows, and they would, get a lot of money for the shows. So most of them, they'd be their biggest shows of the year, because every wrestling fan in the world is converging on the Mania sites. So in lieu of that, you're not gonna have everybody converge on the Tampa this year. Maybe next year that'll happen again in LA. I think it's gonna be LA next year, right? Yeah. But but this year is still too much COVID restrictions and stuff. But you can still stream. So we got all every promotion is pretty much gonna do a show on this coming during Mania week. And we're talking here about Impact doing one on the first night of WrestleMania, which I don't agree with, but hey, more power to them. If they feel they could do it, go ahead. But there's gonna be a few incidents that I've seen already. Like I think I mentioned it with you and in the minds. We text each other stuff. The thing that jumps out at me right now, leading up is the Lio Rush Enzo match. That's it. I don't know what the hell is for anything, but I just want to see. I just want to see them fools go at it, and I hope they can put out some promos and stuff leading up to the match and just see which one can out crazy the other.
Man, you know what? When I seen that and I reposted it on, what the hell? And then I'm like, you know what? With everything going on in wrestling, this goes in line with it because we just getting some crazy, just like, wait a minute, that's happening. Like we got, was it Thunder Rosa and Kylie Ray at War of Warriors? Warriors of Wrestling. Yeah, and like June 5th, and I'm like, oh, okay.
I might go to that, man. I showed you with the moms, man. That's gonna be out in Marion Catholic High School. And Warrior Wrestling, shout out to them, man. I might try to get one of their people on too, man. At some point, like I've seen their booking. Like they get a lot of wrestlers who people who are on TV today, not just before they're on TV, but people who are on TV today. AEW people, Impact people, Ring of Honor people. They're getting them to come to Chicago and do these shows.
Yeah.
And, that's pretty cool. Like for an indie like that.
Yeah, I think out of most of the indie promotions here in Chicago, outside of I know AEW, I think those two are the more reputable organizations that have some sense of professionalism. Because that's something I'm seeing online with a lot of wrestling media and just wrestlers, that a lot of these indie promotions just are kind of carefree as far as COVID restrictions, let alone payouts and all this other stuff and travel and things like that. But the COVID restrictions are real. They're just like, you know what? I'm not taking a chance going on there. It's like you got a small area of people compacted with no mask, no social distancing, and you want me to wrestle there? Like, and I'm wrestling on TNT and on YouTube for AEW.
Right, getting guaranteed.
Okay,
yeah. And that's what's dope about this. Yeah. That's what's dope about this Warrior event that I think they did one or two of these last year too. It was like doing it out in a stadium, in the high school stadium, and they allow it allows for space. Allows for space among the fans and space among the wrestlers. And in anything you do outside, it helps limit the ability to spread the disease as opposed to doing something on the inside. So good luck to them. And like I said, you may hear more about that particular. They having a series like of 3 events in the summer, so you may hear more about that here on WARR coming up. But Warrior on WARR, that'd be pretty fitting. But
there you go. You got to play on words. You need to hook something up with that, man. That's good promo right there.
Yeah, definitely. But let's get into this WWE stuff, man. And this is, of course, like I said, everything revolves around Mania. And me and you talked on our own about this Fastlane stuff and what it's meant. Like, I don't know, just the concept of Fastlane itself. Like, okay. So like I said, some years it works better than others, like in stretching stories or allowing to build or like adjust the WrestleMania storyline. Like primarily you think of like the Kofi Mania storyline. And it allowed that to extend and sort of pivot itself to where Kofi was given another chance to wrestle and prove himself as a main event guy, leading up to him eventually getting in the Mania, not the main event, but the championship match, and have that great moment. But most years it seems like it's just there just to delay stuff, and it gets in the way of the storylines. And this particular year has just been really, really obvious that that's been the case. And me and you, like I said, me even talking about it, like, the storylines is just about every main storyline has been touched in some way, and not in a good way. And the show, I'll let you speak in a second. I just want to give my overall thoughts on the show, man. For me, it was too much, man. It was too much of everything, too much drama, too much. Like every match was pretty much too long. Every match was like I said, it was so melodramatic, but nothing really got settled.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really annoying to me. Like when I was thinking back on it at the end, I was like, none of these storylines got settled. You had all these grudge matches and all this stuff that's supposed to be settled. And outside of maybe, and I say maybe, the Drew McIntyre Sheamus match, there was no real blow-offs. And you can't even really trust that to be a blow-off because, WWE just never seems to know when to end storylines nowadays, But you got the women's title match with, I don't know why I'm blanking. The SmackDown women's.
Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler.
Yeah. Well, they went against Sasha and Bianca.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I'm talking about. Their storyline, Sasha and Bianca.
Oh.
And I know you're not happy with that one, but they have it now where it's official. They're not trying to be teammates anymore. They're officially. I mean, the match has been set up for a month anyway, but they haven't just really dealt with them. They haven't really dealt with them in the right way. They inserted this Reginald guy, who, as a character, look, I don't mind Reginald as a character, but he's sort of in the place where he needs to be right now, being Nia's boy toy.
Yeah, wrong place, wrong time, buddy.
Yeah, but
like this ain't for you.
But he was mixed up with them and stuff, and it's like, okay, I mean, if you were going to have him be Sasha's man, just have him be Sasha's man, and they'll go from there. But then they was, I don't know, but that storyline is weird. They're making the Universal match into a 3-way now, and it's like, and they made Roman tap, but they didn't let him lose, and they had an Edge just snaps and goes off on everyone. It's like, I don't like everything. The stuff that I was a little bit emotionally invested in, like the Intercontinental match, it just was too much. And they don't allow, in that match in particular, they don't allow Apollo to ever truly go over. He keeps losing, and then he keeps saying it's not over. So I saw somebody on the website called him Apollo Killmonger, which I love.
That goes in line with everything else that people were calling the WWE wrestlers yesterday. Oh God.
Yeah, like I say, every story was kind of, the wrestling wasn't that bad, like I say, except for the matches being too long for the most part.
Yeah.
But you had some whack, you just had whack stuff involved with all the storylines and all the matches. That the return of the Fiend, I could give a damn about that.
Oh, that
whole thing, man. Was just,
What's funny about that one? People said he looked like a burnt Ewok.
Yeah, Ewoks just TV. That's all on TNT, man. I ain't even think of it. Oh man,
I'm sorry for laughing with that.
How you gonna be burnt? No, that's funny, yo. How you gonna be burnt for 3 months and just come back like, oh, I'm still burnt? Like
man, they said he also looked like Chucky when he was burnt with the knife.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm sorry, Kyle.
They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do with.
Yes, that whole pay-per-view.
They don't know what they do.
So like from the first match, which is Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks, the tag match, all the way to like the Matt Riddle promo, that was just weird. Like none of that made any sense. Reginald coming out, he just walked off. I was like, it was funny, but it's like, huh? But yeah, that like the whole Fastlane thing. Like I was talking to a few people on Twitter, and I was like, man, for some reason, it feels like this pay-per-view should have happened like 2 weeks to a month before. Like it like the placing just didn't feel like right because we're 3 weeks away from WrestleMania. That's the thing that a lot of people aren't aware of.
You don't need two pay-per-views in between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. You really don't need one. But if you're gonna have a pay-per-view, just have one pay-per-view. You don't need two pay-per-views.
Yes.
In the span of a month and a half.
Yeah, because this pay-per-view, Fastlane, it kind of nipped the momentum that Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair had right after Royal Rumble. It nipped a lot of momentum that Edge had after the Royal Rumble. Cesaro and Seth Rollins, the little momentum they had as soon as Seth returned. It was just really
that actually was a good match though. Him and Shinsuke was probably the best match of the night. And I actually liked the pre-match too with
Mustafa.
Mustafa and Riddle. I like that as a match. I like that the Retribution folks, finally just got tired of Mustafa. And whooped on him, so that's a little blow off there, but it was in a pre-game, so nobody cares about that.
I know but you know what? Yeah. I think one of the reasons why it was also one of the weirdest pay-per-views is what happened after the pay-per-view, because they announced that Andrade he got released.
And the
thing is, it came out he don't have a no complete cause, so he can go wherever he wants. Nope.
Okay, see, I heard Meltzer and Alvarez talk about that, but Meltzer mentioned that he might have one, but I didn't hear that he didn't have one. So he can go
anywhere. Out later today. Yeah, because I thought it was weird. I'm like, why you announce it right after the pay-per-view? Like, what, you trying to keep it hush-hush? And I tweeted, I was like, don't they realize, like, wrestling fans after pay-per-view don't go to sleep till, like, 4 to 6 hours after the pay-per-view? Because we're talking to other wrestling fans? Like, come on, man. News is going to break. And, I think that's one of the reasons why it was just a really, the correct word I used yesterday, and I think I tweeted you, discombobulated. That was a discombobulated pay-per-view. Where you're just like, I don't know if I should be frustrated, confused, or anxious. I don't know what to feel. Just let it play out. Just, yeah. And it's sad because you had such good momentum going from the Royal Rumble. Like, you had some really good momentum. Finally tonight you get Rhea Ripley on Raw, but it's like you've been teasing her return for like a month. Like, why are you taking so long?
And that's kind of weird. That's kind of weird too. Like premiering a person in the weeks, but in the week between in the time between your last pay-per-view and WrestleMania. Like usually, if you would premiere a person around this time of year, you may do it in the Raw after the Royal Rumble, or you would wait until the Raw after Mania.
Yeah,
but doing it like the Raw after Fastlane, like what are you gonna do with her for Mania? You're hot shotting her obviously into something, and it's probably like you say discombobulate another storyline, or it's probably just gonna be it's gonna be like, okay, she's gonna go against Charlotte again, probably. And
actually, the word is that she's probably facing Asuka because we don't know what's going on with Charlotte, Andrade, and that whole thing. I know 2 years ago, if you remember, Charlotte and Andrade, they copyrighted names that were away from WWE. So it's like, wait a minute, were they planning for their exit like 2 years ago? And again, it's not confirmed or speculated that Charlotte's leaving, but hey, the way everything's going in the last 2 years, I wouldn't put it past them if she's on the way out.
I would be real surprised if WWE lets her go. Like they would, I think they would probably, that'd be one of the people that they would want to see they'll be the last person they would have come out the door, But I don't know. Like
it's WWE. They make some of the most craziest decisions. Like, how they let that person go? Like, what? And
they just let a man go and wither away without nothing. And he has talent. It's not like he's whack. It's like he's one of the dopest wrestlers they got, really. But
he literally carried Raw like a little bit before the pandemic and through the most of the pandemic till he was last seen on TV. Because if you remember, it was him and Mysterio. For all them Raws that nobody could go to, they were the ones that were carrying the show. And it's like, that's your payoff? You just take him off TV. And
his manager was dope, and they let her go. And I mean, it was because Paulie was in control, and he showed love. He tweeted and showed love to Paulie, showed love to Triple H. Ain't say nothing about Vince. Ain't say nothing about Bruce Pritchard like that.
And it's the same thing. Like, it's just really weird. I think I don't know if you had a chance to listen to Big Show's podcast that he did with Jericho and everything. He was pretty much touching on that. Yeah, he was mentioning how it's really just WWE isn't what it was 20 years ago as far as backstage and just stuff like that. And it's just like, man, okay. And it got me thinking. I was talking to my co-host Julio. I was like, now I kind of see why Impact is running the show against WrestleMania, because they probably don't even have the card set for WrestleMania 9. It's like Impact's like, well, we gotta lose. It's like, right, you guys treat us like the underdogs. So it's like,
they don't have any reason to be scared. Like, what? Yeah, you can put on the show.
And it's not a pay-per-view. That's the thing. Impact Wrestling's event is not a pay-per-view. It's actually, you can watch that on their website. So if anything's on Impact Wrestling Plus, that's a special event you can watch on our website. If it says pay-per-view, of course it's a pay-per-view. But yesterday it was just really weird. The Fiend coming back, I'm just like, that's the damn thing he comes back in? Like, it's like people were posting pictures of him and Fire Marshal Bill. I'm like,
that's let me tell you something.
Yeah, and it's like,
that sure was,
and it's sad because it's like you had that, then you had the whole thing with was it Shane McMahon, and he gets Elias, and everybody was thinking like, hey man, Shane McMahon's probably gonna get Dabba-Kato to fill in for him. It's like, okay, that it makes sense. Raw Underground, he lost to Strowman. It's like, as bad as this stuff is, like, you can make it logical somewhat. Elias, right. What? I'm like, man, this don't make no sense. And
what Elias supposed to do with Strowman?
And like I told my buddy, I'm like, you know what?
You could at least had him and Jackson Riker go against him. Like,
exactly. Riker was on the side. He was at ringside just looking, watching Elias get beaten. I'm like, how does this even make, like, what? Like, this doesn't make sense. And, like I text my buddy, my co-host, I was like, man, you know what? Thank God we got all these other promotions, because, like, I'm not stressing over this. I got other promotions I can watch, and this is just bad. And, Kurt Angle, he just did a podcast. He was talking about how 2 years ago he was there, that, the WrestleMania card ain't even ready like a month before WrestleMania. When before, 20 years ago, the WrestleMania card was already set by like the end of December to beginning of January. It was already set. So, you could tell, you could see that in the last, you could say 10 years almost, that it's just like it's taking a long time for matches to be finalized. Like, so far we got Sasha, Bianca, we got Roman and Edge, and possibly Daniel Bryan. You got Lashley and McIntyre. I believe that's it. I mean, you're gonna have the bad. What's crazy is we know that they're gonna have Bad Bunny.
They got like a couple
WrestleMania
tag team matches too.
Yeah, but they still haven't announced Bad Bunny wrestling at WrestleMania. Like, we know he's gonna wrestle there.
Well, I mean, maybe they changed their mind on that. I don't know. You can't tell.
That is WWE. Like, they would do something. They're like, he's not gonna wrestle on WrestleMania. He's gonna wrestle in the Raw after WrestleMania. Like, what? They would do something like that.
Right. They gotta get that first hour of the following Raw. You know. But that's the thing though. It's like they don't have to worry about pay-per-views with this. They just got to get a decent number for Peacock.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people having issues with Peacock where you couldn't rewind if you watch it live.
Yeah.
So you had that issue.
I watched yesterday on Peacock. It was weird. Like I couldn't leave the screen and pause it or anything like that. And when it ended, it just like typically if you watch a WWE show, like if I watch a WWE show on the network, I would just let it run and they'd have something cool after like a documentary or something that will air after the the pay-per-view. But with Peacock, your broadcast is over or something. That's some weird music comes on the screen says the event is over. It's a different.
Yeah, that's bad.
But we got Larry Hawley waiting on the line here. But before I want to let you go though, Dedrian. But before talk quick about your thoughts on the NWA show yesterday. That's another promotion that actually doesn't. They did a show the same day as WWE. They did it a little earlier though, so it was about done when Fastlane came on, right?
Yeah, it was like an hour. Actually, it was done right before the kickoff show, so it was perfect time. I think that's how Impact might do it. I don't think they're gonna go head to head. They might do it that way, but then again, they might not. But yeah, that NWA show, it was a tribute to Joseph Hansen. I think that's his name. The show was very simple, to the point, and the matches were really good.
WWE.
Literally the opposite. And it was just very simple and to the point, man.
And I saw like some clips. They had like emotional thing at the end. It made me think of what AEW did after Brody died.
Yeah, it was just
the show in his honor, and everybody comes together, and it's
Yeah, but it was. If you didn't like that pay-per-view, if you didn't like WWE's pay-per-view, I would recommend you watch that one. I think that's why I wasn't so bleh with WWE's pay-per-view. I'm like, this is kind of discombobulating, but hell, I watched a pretty decent pay-per-view earlier, so oh well.
At least that.
Yeah. So I mean,
I would say I recommend NWA in particular. Like they're trying to bring some of that old school feeling back. You know, Nick Aldis is a strong champ. You got the Pope. Another old WWE guy who was a champ somewhere else.
Guy.
He's great. He's a great talker. He's a great performer. He's like if Dusty Rhodes was black. That's how the Pope is.
But yeah, it was a good pay-per-view, man. I would recommend anybody who wanted to check it out and everything. It was really good, and also keep an eye on them being involved with this Impact AEW thing in the future. Just keep an eye out on it. So, but yeah, man, it was a really good pay-per-view. I enjoyed it, and it wasn't that long. It was about an hour and 40 minutes.
Well, that's really good. That's really good. You want the 2 hours, man? You definitely can't expect that from any other show. That's not even WWE, but like every other AEW or Impact ain't giving you a pay-per-view under 2 hours either. So good kudos to them for that. But yeah, thanks, Dedrian, man, for stopping by, man.
Thank you.
Let's try to do this a time or two before Mania, and I know, like I said, you got a lot going on that week, but we'll let definitely people on our sites and stuff know about what you got going on with Wrestling Talk. Y'all gonna have some special stuff going on in the immediate days up to WrestleMania as well as during that weekend. So we'll definitely promote that pretty soon.
Thank you. I had fun. It's always a pleasure talking about wrestling, and now I have to cover 5 hours of wrestling right now. So you might message me at 11, and I still might be watching.
But I would say, man, good luck through this Raw, man. Hopefully they don't make. Hopefully at least an hour of it is decent, man.
Well, I'll give you a hit. First match is Sheamus and Bobby Lashley, so I'll leave it at that.
Oh well, that's not too bad. That's not bad. Okay, all right, man.
All right, man. Thank you so much, man. Have a good show.
All right, talk to you later.
What's going on, Kyle?
I'm good. How are you, Larry?
I'm good, other than the Illini having a bad day yesterday, but Loyola had a great day, so I'm good. I'm fine. I'm all good.
Well, of course, that's one of the main reasons I'm glad to have you on here tonight. Glad to have you on. In period, it's first time I think we've done anything like this, but appreciate you and of course, Larry Hawley, the sports producer for WGN, does all this TV stuff and online stuff. Does a great job. Definitely a great follow online in social media as well. But man, it's tough. I'm looking at the tournament now. I got it up on my screen, and for you, let's just start off for you. Like you're an Illini, you're Illinois University of Illinois alumnus. Of course, you're a sports fan. Sports is a big part of your life as a sports fan and a sports journalist. You're also here in Chicago, of course. So you follow Loyola. That's part of your beat. And what was it like for you just watching that game yesterday and internalizing everything that was going along with it? Just you had at one time you had just the excellence of Loyola and them being a great story once again, rising up to the moment in March. But at the same time, you had just the disappointment of Illinois, your school, your program just falling flat at the worst possible time.
Yeah, and they did, and it was the worst game I think they played all year. And it's a lot. It's a lot of emotion. I even tweeted it. It's a lot of emotion. First of all, as a U of I grad, Illinois gets one of these runs about every 15. Well, actually, specifically about every 16 years. They had 89.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, it was 16 years from 89 to 05, and now 05 to 21.
Yeah. And it's kind of gone now. Now, when I was in school, my junior year, when I was at the Daily Illini, they had a number 1 seed that year in 2001. So that was the Frank Marcus Griffin, Sergio McLean team. Other guys, Corey Bradford. I remember a really talented guard. I think he may have been the freshman of the year. I believe in 99, he was the freshman of the year in the Big Ten. Another great player. He was on that team as well. That group played against the Arizona team in the Elite Eight, who is a 2nd seed. They had Jason Gardner, Lauren Woods, Richard Jefferson. That was really a 1A seed, and they ran into a team that was really good. And that Arizona team, I was surprised, didn't win the national championship. But every 16 years, you have one of these runs where they're really good, among the top 4 in college basketball. And this Illinois team was special. And you saw it down the stretch when they won, I believe it was 16 of 17 games, including that win over Drexel. And they were special even without Iota Sumu, a program-changing player. They were special. They were playing special basketball. So in many ways, it was a shock to see them be completely rendered almost, I wouldn't say useless on offense, but they could get nothing going, and they had no solution. Underwood couldn't find a solution. Obviously, Trent Frazier had a really bad game. For those of you who are wondering how important Trent Frazier is to Illinois basketball, look yesterday. 1 for 10 and 2 points. They have to have something from him. They had to have something, and it just didn't happen. I just kept waiting for that moment where Io or Trent, maybe even Kofi inside, was going to be able to make that push, that 9-0 run. I always call it the Arizona run that they had in 2005. You remember in that game, it was Darren, it was Luther, it was D, steals, 3-pointers, baskets, all of a sudden a 15-point lead with about 3:30 to go is suddenly gone with 40 seconds left to go in regulation. It just didn't happen. That's what I was shocked at. They just didn't come together. And it was a shame from someone who comes from Illinois, because you realize this was a once in a kind of team. You have Ayo Dosunmu, a special player from Morgan Park, one of the greatest in Illinois basketball history. And I don't think it's simple hyperbole to say that. He's a man who really helped to rebuild this program to prominence here in America. Illinois was irrelevant. If you think about it, late in the Gross era, yes, they were competitive. They had some great players that went through there. But Ayo, when he arrived, it changed. When Ayo arrived, it changed. They got a player who could impact the game in so many ways. They had a leader who could inspire others. And it was just a shame. In my heart, it was sad to see him, Trent, and Kofi, all three huge impact players, leave on a dud. And it was a dud. I don't think I'm, being overly harsh in saying that it was a dud. At the same time, look at why it was a dud. It was because of Loyola. That game was all about Loyola. Yes, Illinois did not play very well, but they didn't shoot 10% from the field. They weren't out rebounded by 25. It was all Loyola. It was all Loyola's defense being aggressive, forcing Illinois out of their offense. And when Illinois made changes, Loyola wasn't going to let anything happen. In my opinion, that game was all about the Ramblers. And maybe from the fan perspective, it softens the blow, because it wasn't like Illinois just went out there and completely blew it. Could they have played better? Absolutely. But they didn't play well because Loyola was awesome, because they had Cameron Krutwig, who played well on offense and defense and did a great job to really deny those touches to Kofi early that didn't allow Illinois to get any rhythm when they knew the guards were struggling a little bit. And Krutwig did a great job on offense too. Lucas Williamson, another Chicago guy.
Yes.
Awesome. He kind of gets a little underrated, because Krutwig, obviously he's the guy that's there, but you can't forget about Williamson's contributions. Huge contributor on that team in 2018. Been a steady player over the last few years and really has shown up in this tournament. I thought he did a marvelous defensive job along with the rest of the team. And those two seniors have showed the way to a new young group to now make another run. And I don't know if you look at it, Kyle, they've got a pretty good shot to win in the Sweet 16. And that's no insult at all to Oregon State, who's played some fantastic basketball over the last two games.
Well, the Midwest is blown the hell up.
It is. And if you think about it, it took Houston to have a really major rally, a really, really good Houston team. They barely escaped Rutgers. I mean, you would have had the same scenario happen in 2018 where that whole bracket got blown up in the South region. It almost happened in the Midwest again. But I guess from the duality of it, from the game, I'm sad because I know a special Illinois run ended. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Trent can come back, because I think that there's the 6 year of eligibility because of COVID. I know that there's some. I have to kind of look at it more specifically, but I think seniors may have the option to return. Ayo obviously is going to go. There's no more he can do at Illinois. He has reached it. Underwood even said, I can't teach him anything more. And there's nothing more he can do. He's made his contribution. It'd been cool if they made a Final Four. They would have won a national championship. But he's done his part. It's now time for him to take the next step in his basketball career. Maybe Kofi comes back. Kofi had a very strong year. Maybe he looks at it and comes back. But again, as I've always said, for a player in college, if you have a chance to use your talent to better yourself, better your family, and be able to get monetary benefits from it, then you absolutely have to take that opportunity. So it's a shame that team doesn't get the chance to go to a Final Four. But at the same time, you're watching a very special thing happen here at Loyola. It's something special, something we haven't probably seen here in the city for basketball, probably since DePaul was in their heyday from the late 70s, and then that stretch that continued through the early 1990s when they, early in those days were a national powerhouse. They were right there. I mean, they had a number one seed. We speak of flameouts. They were hurt by early upsets in the NCAA tournament after they made the Final Four in '79, when they were right there with Magic, and obviously in the same Final Four with Magic and then Larry Bird, who they lost to in the national semifinal. This is a special thing for Chicago basketball, and it's a special thing for fans. So it is. There's a lot to it to me. I also love the story of Potter Mosier too, and how his second chapter of his career. So you can see my mind's been through a lot the last 24 hours just over this one basketball game. But in the end, it's all good.
Yeah, I'm kind of right with you there because I didn't go to Illinois like you. I wasn't good enough in high school to go to Champaign. No, I'll just play. But I really wasn't. I didn't do it well as I should. But I've always rooted for Illinois, and they were the school that introduced me to big time college sports, as it were. So I go back to I don't go back to '89, but not far after that. Like I go back to like Deion Thomas. Like I've watched U of I, follow U of I my whole sporting life, just about. So I root for him unabashedly, and it's tough to see a program like that. So many people say that it's one of the best programs, if not the best program, to not have a national title. And it's like, when are they going to make that breakthrough? You keep wondering, like, even with a special player like Io at the head and a special big man like Kofi, and it seemed so much about this year seemed like it was written in the stars almost, because you had last year where they were good enough to maybe reach the second round or Sweet 16 last year, but the sport got shut down, and it sort of put forth a series of events that allowed Kofi and Io, who were both sort of teasing maybe leaving last year, to return this year, a year older, a year stronger, year wiser, and they played they played as first team All-American kids this season and brought the school back to the program back in a way, like you said, that it hasn't been in many times in its history. So many people were picking them to at least get to the Final Four or get to the final game against, facing off against Gonzaga or whoever. But, that's where the disappointment lies again with me. It's like, I just, I predicted so much for them. I had about 4 or 5 brackets. I had them winning in all of them except one, and just for variety's sake. And beyond that, it's just like I say, those are good kids though, and Iowa in particular has left his mark on the program, and like I say, you hurt for him. But as a Chicagoan, though, I feel pride for Loyola. You mentioned a guy like Lucas Williamson, who was been playing a lot of good basketball. He's overlooked, but he's played a lot of good basketball in this city for a long time, winning 2 state championships at Whitney Young, going at Loyola, and going to another Sweet 16. How many homegrown Chicago basketball players have a resume like that? Outside of the NBA, that's a great. I put them up there with a lot of the players from recent years, with that type of resume, and Krutwig being, just this unlikely star, from what's Algonquin he's from,
Jacobs High School.
Yeah, just like everybody loves him. They whether they think he's a plumber or or somebody's dad or something, like everybody just loves him. So I'm really happy to see them get to showcase again and to be able to play on that national that widely seen game, Sweet 16 game that we're going to see this coming Saturday. But what was your feeling though when the brackets were announced and we saw that the possibility was going to be there for these 2 teams to face in the second round? I just really hated that, because of course I would have rather seen them face each other deeper in the tournament. We'd love to see them face each other in the national championship game if possible, but it had to happen in the second round. Some people say it was CBS sort of factoring themselves in, trying to help to come fixture a good ratings game, but at the same time they put it at 11. They put it at the first game. I don't know how much that worked. We all try to be TV executives with these sort of things, but I don't think you would put a showcase game like that at 11 in the morning. I think we put it later in the day. But anyway, did you think when you saw the bracket and this release initially that there was a great possibility that Illinois could, I didn't think they would lose at all. Definitely not lose the way that they lose. But what did you think when you first saw it?
Well, when I first saw it, I think it's great for Illinois, the state of Illinois basketball. It's great for Chicago basketball. Now, again, we can get into the debate whether, Illinois is at a Chicago school. Obviously, it's not, from the location, obviously it's not, but there's a huge fan base here. Whereas Loyola, Chicago school, Rogers Park, it's right there. Great for the state, great for the city. I thought it would be a great thing if they both faced off. I figured Georgia Tech would be a challenge, but they were down. They were down the ACC Player of the Year, so that really hurt them.
Yeah, Moses, right.
Yeah, I thought it would be fantastic. I'm like, this is fantastic. In my heart, I thought Loyola might be a 6 or a 7 based off of the projections of what they were doing. Yeah. I thought a 7 might be more fair because they get a 2, and I thought maybe that would work out a little bit better for them. So I kind of in my mind rooted for a 7. I thought
put them on the other side of the bracket.
Yeah,
at least
put it on the other side.
Yeah.
Other side of the bracket, I felt like that they had earned that. I felt like it gave them perhaps maybe a little, again, easier first-round matchup and obviously allowed them a chance to face a 2 instead of a 1. But when they did meet up, I was really happy about it because, all right, from the Illini, I thought, you're going to have to beat some good teams anyway. Let's do it. And I felt like the challenge of Loyola's defense would be something good for the team, again, if they could advance. I really felt like that was something good. I felt like it was fantastic for Loyola, a chance to show themselves against, one of the Big Ten schools in the state, one of the best teams in the country. I can make an argument that at the time they played them, that Illinois is playing the best of any team in the country. I think you can put that argument up there based on how they played last half of the season. Big Ten tournament, and of course their opening win over Drexel. You take it for what it's worth, but all those guys are playing their first NCAA tournament game, and they pretty much ran right through them after about 10 minutes of kind of a little bit of slugging back and forth. They go do that. I didn't mind the matchup. Would I've loved to have seen it later? Absolutely. Could this have been a great Sweet 16 game? Yes, this would have been a great Sweet 16 game, no doubt about it. This would have been a lot of fun as a Sweet 16 game. From Loyola's perspective, you've got to beat really good teams anyway, so you might as well face them now. You might as well face them now. From Illinois' perspective, what a challenge from Loyola's defense, the number 1 defense in scoring in the country this past season.
Yeah,
I thought it was great from all the perspectives, from what it could give to both teams, along with the attention for the state. I loved it. Would I love for it to be in the Sweet 16? Sure, but I didn't mind it being in the second round. But at the same time, I kind of had that. Now, this is differing from a lot of other people. You got to beat great teams in the tournament. You're going to have to face them anyway, so why don't you face them now? I remember it was something that I heard from Brad Stevens when he was at Butler. When Butler one year got seeded 7th, when they had a resume that they could have put them 4th. But they didn't get a lot of respect. They were easily the best team in the Horizon League, and they didn't quite get the respect. So instead of being on a 6 or a 5 line, they ended up being on a 7, won their first game, and then they ran into one of Bruce Pearl's Tennessee teams. This would have been 2008, and they ran into them in the second round. And that was obviously a precursor for what happened. And, as we get back to one thing that I even put on Twitter, this Loyola run reminds me a lot of what Butler did under Brad Stevens in the late 2000s and then the early 2010s. So many similarities to it. So when I saw, and I mentioned that because when I saw Illinois possibly matching up with Loyola, it had such a Butler feel. It felt so much like Butler. The tough defense, the guy in the middle, the Cameron Krutwig, reminded me of Matt Howard. I don't know if you remember him from Butler, great teams. Again, was he a flashy player? No, but Butler could run a lot of things through him, and he was a ferocious defender. And he made a big difference. And whereas, Krutwig has Lucas Williamson, that year Butler had Shelvin Mack, an outstanding guard who played in the NBA. And you had a lot of other players who were complementary, and all of them came together to make it work. So I mentioned to my friend who is an Illini fan, I have a real Butler vibe here, and this could be a problem if Illinois does not bring their best on offense, which they did not do on Sunday. Loyola having a lot to do with that. And then again, not having the guards. You can have Kofi have an off. You can have Kofi have an off game. You've got the guards. You can have IO be okay, but you've got Trent. you can't really lose both those guards. One of those usually has to show up for Illinois to win. They didn't, and there you have it. So I didn't mind it. I didn't mind the second round matchup. I could get the argument that they could have been later, but no, I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it at all for either club.
Yeah, and like you say, they just played their worst game of arguably of the season. Like it just was that bad timing that was involved there. If Illinois plays their best, they likely win that game, but they just didn't do the things that they came to be known as as a top seeded team, as a team that won the Big Ten tournament. So it's just unfortunate that it all come about that way, and like you say, that three very they may be the last game for three very heavily highly rated players that the program has had, and Frazier and Kofi and Io, but that's the tournament. We see there's been a lot of other upsets in the tournament this year, and it makes me think about the Big Ten in particular has just had a hard time of it, and as Big Ten was supposed to be as tough as it's ever been, but this has been a year in general as it really was hard because of so many missed games, so many issues with COVID-19 and everything, where it was harder than in typical years to gauge these teams individually and within the context of their conferences and the context of the conferences against each other. So you get something here where you wind up getting something in this tournament where the Big Ten has 9 or 10 teams in it, and they're down to 2 schools currently right now, I believe, Michigan and Maryland, the last 2 left. And you have something where the Pac-12 is very underrated, you could say, this year, overlooked in a lot of ways, and they haven't lost a game in the tournament this year. So it's interesting. I think that the tournament and the committee still has issues with. They have too many issues to my liking with mid-majors. And going back to Loyola, like I said, they were at least a seed or 2 lower than they should have been. And it has an effect on these conferences and these programs, because you look at Loyola being right now in the Missouri Valley. They're dominating the Missouri Valley. And they look like a team. I don't know if this is feasible for them, but they look a lot to me like, I came up in Missouri Valley too because I went to SIU. So, I've been looking at that conference for a long time. And they look like a Wichita State and a Creighton did 10, 15 years ago, where they were being underranked and underrated in so many ways. And they both look to get out of the conference eventually. Creighton to the Big East, Wichita to the AAC, and I don't know if Loyola, like I said, if that's feasible for Loyola, but what do you think about on a wide angle, in the wide angle lens, putting that on Loyola and the future of this program, including the possibility of a bigger school coming in and tempting Porter Moser away? What do you think about, how should we contextualize Loyola and this place in college basketball right now?
Well, it's developing a little bit. Now, some of it will make, a lot of it will be made over the next week and a half or so, if they should make it that far, or go 2 weeks. If they make another Final Four run, that doesn't happen a lot. That doesn't happen a lot. And again, I come back to the Butler thing. Let's go back to where Butler was. Butler was in the old MCC, then they're in the Horizon League. They had this outstanding success, which they had before the Final 4 years. They had a couple of Sweet 16 appearances in the 2000s, I believe 2003 and then 2007. The last year of Licklider, they were there before Stevens took the job. So they had already kind of built their brand up a little bit. Then they have these incredible runs. Then they're in the Atlantic 10. And then they make the quick jump to the Big East. So that was very quick. Yeah. So you went Horizon, then you went A10. I believe they were only in for 1 year. And then all of a sudden you're in the Big East. And the one thing I always try to think globally about this, because this same thing has crossed my mind. What if Where does Loyola go from here? Do they go up to another conference? Do they take a step up? You have a natural rival in the years down the road. You got a natural rival in DePaul right here. If they really wanted to go to the Big East, there's a lot of things.
But some people, right quick. Some people would say that DePaul might try to block such a move. Like if they eyed the Big East, like do you think that would be the case?
It could be. I mean, that's talk down the road. Could they do it? They might. I mean, it would be awesome to have two city schools like that right there and, right in the thick of it in a conference play. They would be down the road. Could they do it? Sure. DePaul's kind of figuring, right now, their own self out where they want to go here with a new athletic director.
Got a lot to figure out.
Yeah, a lot to figure out with their, their main sport. Obviously they've got a good thing going in women's basketball. They were penalized this year for having won. Their last week was terrible and they got left out of the tournament. But kind of going back to Loyola, and could that be the case? Sure. I mean, that could be a thought. I mean, you're kind of making your way there. They were in the NIT the year after they made the Final Four. There were projections they would have made it again last year had there been an NIT. There were a couple of some do NIT bracketology. A lot of had them as the last team in. So that's, could have very well been 4 straight appearances there. And it's an interesting question because I kind of transition it. Let me go to one other thing before I transition it to Porter. Another thing you got to remember, you move up in conferences, you do that with every single sport. So it's not just basketball that's going to leap. You would probably do that leap with every other sport. So it's a broader question for Loyola,
right.
But certainly it's one you can think about and that I've thought about now that they've made these what are looking like pretty significant tournament runs that they've got coming up. A big part of being able to do that and sustain that in my mind would be keeping Porter around. And what Porter Moser has done, especially yesterday with beating Illinois and doing so by crafting a really good plan, a part of it, you never take anything away from the athletes. Putting together a really good plan that defeated Brad Underwood, one of the, guys who's, been one of the best coaches in the league this year. Porter doesn't have to go run for the next big job. If he doesn't like what he sees somewhere, he can wait. He can wait for that right job to come along, like as Stevens did when he took the Celtics job. Stevens had a chance to come to Illinois after they had slid late in the Weber years. He didn't do it. He was offered a lot of other places. Oregon, who pulled the upset over Iowa. He was, Oregon came at him with a lot. He didn't have to do that because he had a great situation in which he had a good program. They were having success, and he wasn't going to have to worry about his job. Porter Moser has that right now. And Porter Moser is a great story because he was a head coach at ISU for a little bit. They had so success. He's let go in a move that some fans of the Redbirds thought might have been too early. Obviously, some people thought that even back before this run, that he may have been let go a little bit early. He goes under Rick Majerus, has this really good I believe it was 4 years as an assistant, comes to Loyola, takes the program, which had been teetering for a while, gets them to, they won a CBI championship in 2015. They had Milton Doyle, a really, really good player who's been able to translate that to a professional career. And he's been there now. And now you have this build up to a program. Porter's built a nice program there that has national recognition, that's discovered its very proud roots that were there in the 1960s when they were a revolutionary program, when they played in the game of change and won Illinois' only Division I national championship. They've recaptured this proud history. And he's got a program that can compete in the Missouri Valley and can win in the Missouri Valley. That is a very, very good conference. If I'm Porter Moser, I think really, really hard before I take a job. Everybody's making the natural leap to DePaul. Maybe he has a good situation at Loyola and says, you know what, maybe I want to grow it. Maybe I want to see Loyola take a step in a conference, should the program and all of that come together to do it. So right now, Porter Moser's in a good spot, and I don't know if he just leaps to the next job. And that might even include Indiana, who might give him a call. An Indiana storied program, but they need work. They need a redefinition of their program. They need to find a new way to move beyond the shadow of Bobby Knight, which is still there. Yeah. They need that. So these are all questions to look for as far as Loyola's program. These goals of moving up could be there. And the same could be for Porter. A lot depends, obviously, how they finish this run and then where they want to go as a program in general. But again, it's cool to see because you're thinking the same kind of way I am. Hey, they make another Final Four. What's next?
Definitely. They give you reason to think like how far can they go? And part of it, like you say, goes back to the fact that they are the only program in the state that has a national championship, that they do have this great history, starting an all-black starting five and, playing in these momentous games back in the 60s. Like, Loyola really should be more of a thing than they are. I mean, I know they had a long stretch where they just didn't do much. I think it was like 85, from 85 to 18, where they didn't even make the tournament. And, but now that they got something back here, let's see how far can they go. It's a great thing to add to the environment of Chicago sports, because we're in a lot of position where we can take what we have to take anything that we can get. Yep. We'll talk some pro stuff here in a minute, but to have, like I say, just to have that sort of rah-rah school spirit type of story. We see it. We're getting a little bit more with Northwestern football. In the fall, they're starting to produce a lot more, but in basketball, like I say, it's been a tough road for so many of our schools in the state, including U of I. But I think Loyola, in my opinion, they're running the state right now. How can you argue against it? But yeah. And my thing before we move on, I think with Porter, I know you made the comparison with Stevens. I kind of think he's going to end up being like a Tony Bennett, like he's gonna I think eventually make that move and probably win a national, because it's so hard to win a national championship at any school. And I don't see him doing it at Loyola, unfortunately, but I see him doing it at a place, going to a major place that's not an obvious place, like Bennett going to Virginia, and eventually instilling an identity, that's so, of course, born so much of what he brings as a coach, and making such a program into a champion eventually. I find it hard to believe that Porter won't at least get to another Final Four with another school at some point, in his career. But anyway, but looking at who's going to likely get into the Final Four now, we're in the final games of the second round. The Sweet 16 is almost set up. And, what do you think about the layout of the tournament right now? I find it hard to see anybody beating Gonzaga, which was pretty much the case going into the tournament. But they've come and looked pretty strong. They've been one top seed that hasn't really had any letdowns in their games. Just about all the other ones have. But it's been competitive ball throughout the tournament. Some great stories in each region, it seems. But what's really stuck out to you looking around the tournament over the first couple games?
I think the chaos that I thought could happen kind of has happened. I remember saying before it, I'm like, because it's in one city, because of the COVID stuff, this could be a wacky tournament where you get some really weird upsets, and we've seen that come to pass. And obviously, as we would every year. There's a reason why the network, what's it, 2, 3, 4 billion that they pay for it, why this is one of the iconic sporting events in all of North America, because it is crazy. There is madness, there is chaos. So it's been probably as much, maybe even a little bit more than I thought. But yet you're right about Gonzaga. That right now, in my mind, they're the favorite. I think Baylor still has a great team. I remember them playing Illinois in December, and they had the feel of like a 2005 Illini, that they were, they had been a group that had come together and they were ready to make it happen. And that, I think the road in my mind still runs through them right now. Another team that I think the teams that you look to that could really do something in my mind, And I point to, obviously we have Loyola here, but Houston under Kelvin Sampson. The one matchup I really look forward to for Illinois, if they could have gotten to the Elite Eight, was to go face Houston, because they have a phenomenal defense. I believe they are second in the NCAA to Loyola in scoring defense. At least they were in the regular season. I'm really curious to see what Houston can do. That's one of the more intriguing teams. They're a team you don't, being here in the Midwest, you see here and there, but you'd always heard and seen what they could do. I'm really compelled to see what kind of game, what they may have, what their answer may be, and if they may have an answer for Baylor, or if they may have an answer for Gonzaga. I'm curious to see. I haven't checked the score. Do you have it there? What Michigan's going to do? Michigan is intriguing to me as well. Michigan, I was actually going to check that out.
They've been pretty strong. Yeah, they're pretty tight with LSU right now. But
yeah,
I don't have the updates for it.
Yeah, I was curious what they would do, because Michigan obviously had a COVID year. They had their season shut down partially because of COVID. I think Juwan Howard, again, we talk about Chicago natives doing good. What a fantastic job he's done at Michigan to really, to be able to take over for John Beilein, who had such a great run there. Curious to see if he can get them over the national championship hump, which they've had now since 1989, and have had a number of great opportunities. Obviously, in my conscience, the Fab Five, probably my most favorite non-Illini, just being, that was just outside. I really enjoyed to watch because they were so revolutionary. I could go on and on about the Fab Five, and I loved that team. So I watched, when I was a kid, I watched Illinois and I watched Notre Dame, and they went up against both those teams. I enjoyed watching them all the time. I just thought they were fantastic. That's a little bit of a tangent, but again, what can Juwan deliver a championship for that program that has knocked on the door a few times here recently, but hasn't been able to get it done? I'm curious to see what Michigan can do. Obviously, as we are on this show, they're playing LSU, another one of those strong teams that's in the middle that can do it. But in my opinion, long story, I really believe that Baylor and Gonzaga are the teams to beat. Loyola and Houston, I'm really curious to see what they can do. And I'd love to see that Elite Eight game between the two best defensive teams in the country. I think it would be just fantastic. It would be great.
Yeah, it'd be a rock fight.
That would be great.
They would go at it. Yeah, and it's great. Like, things have sort of opened up for Loyola. Like, can't sleep on Oregon State, I guess, because they won the Pac-12 tournament, and they've come out and won their first two games, and as a low seed. But man, like I say, you can't. You have to figure it out on any given night. Loyola, given their defense, given their disciplined guard play, Cameron Cover's ability to make plays happen, in the low post or on the high post, whether he's passing or, like I say, making plays, getting to the basket. They just have everything that you could want in a college team, man. They shoot the ball well. They do everything, and like I say, the defense is what matters most, I think. And it'll be great to see them possibly get to that Elite Eight, and if they get to Final Four again, man, that's historic. So I'm going with my heart again. Since I can't go with Illinois, I'm gonna go with those Ramblers. I'm with you on Baylor and Gonzaga. That seems to be what we're destined for as for the Monday night, for that championship Monday night. And man, and that's that East. Hey, why not give Michigan? They've played. So many people, including myself, was like, oh, they lost livers, and not really. We probably weren't giving Michigan enough credit as a whole team, but they seem to be ready for the moment in a lot of ways, and you got to give credit to Juwan Howard in that way, and I still can't believe that they have a coach like Phil Martelli as their second in command there. Like, how good? That's like having 1.5 head coaches at least. Like, it's really 2 head coaches like on that team.
It's fantastic. You can't have that. I remember when I was in Indianapolis, the Pacers, when Frank Vogel, when he was just starting out coaching, he took over for Jim O'Brien, who had been fired, got the Pacers to the playoffs. and the Pacers wanted to keep him because they wanted to see what he would do. And they gave him Brian Shaw, and he was fantastic. And together, they produced a very memorable season, 2012, 2013. We remember 13, 14, and obviously things, kind of went awry that year, at least toward the end with, a team that had a chance for a championship. It just kind of faded. But the 12-13 season, and they were a great pair. I think anytime you can have that, and you can have Jawan, who is, developing his own style and his own persona as a coach, and you put it with Phil, who has been there, has done that. It's a great combination, and a reason why even with Litter's injury, you can't really count Michigan out. I always call it. I don't know if you remember Kalen Lucas from Michigan State. The year Butler went to the title game, and they were in Indy, so they lost Lucas early in the tournament. But again, strong team, had good coaching. Somehow they end up in the Final Four. So I'm very hesitant to rule Michigan out because they had such a great year and they had seemed to build such a good thing there. It's hard to really rule them out, and you never know. But again, my mind and my thought process really right now is on Gonzaga and Baylor, and curious to see if the Houston or Loyola, because of their defense, could bust through there and maybe they can get it. Again, once you get to the Final Four, and in the tournament in general, weird stuff happens. So if you're dreaming of a Loyola championship, I can't tell you not to do it because the defense is strong enough. They have good veteran leadership, and they seem to just have somebody step up all the time that does it. You've got Hall, you've got Norris. I hear Ugwak's another really good player. Through the year, kind of following them, he would come up with these incredible games. I wouldn't be surprised if
he's a good athlete. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if you saw in this tournament he didn't go out for like maybe 27, 28 points. If he didn't have one of those great games, because he's had that tendency to contribute and then have that game where he really busts out. That's another guy maybe to watch here as we get to the Sweet 16, we get to the regionals, to see what he can do here.
Definitely. Michigan, by the way, they're down 5 to with the second half, 63-58. So
we might get full take here right in them. But again, that's another they're wide open after that. So like I said, it's a great turn. I thought it could be chaos. It always is chaos, and now it looks like it might translate. So it'll be fun to see. But again, I think even going back to Michigan, they've got something good there, and I think Illinois is something good too. They got a lot coming back too next year. I think Underwood has built the foundation's back. So there can be good things. I think that Michigan, Illinois, Ohio State, they could tussle at the top for a little while.
Let's not have another 16 years between number one seeds, or Illinois deserves more. Our state deserves more. The program Champaign deserves more than that. So let's see some more consistently great ball coming from that program.
And Curbelo Miller. That's going to be.
That's going to be
special.
Yeah, and not having Io there will be tough, but it could be a great thing for those two because they'll really be able to shine. They'll have more time and more ability to shine. On their own. But right quick, Larry, just before. Now I'll let you go here. Let's do a quick little jaunt across the Chicago sporting scene, the pro sporting scene in particular. Let's start off with the Bulls. Another program, as it were, that has been done well by a coaching boost. Looking at a former great college coach and Donovan. Has added a lot to the team, but he seems to have been in recent times, some frustrations that seem to have kicked in. I don't know if he thinks that he's hit a wall with some of his guys or what, but the Bulls, they had a decent win yesterday against Detroit, but some bad losses last week, come from behind losses and everything. And what's your thoughts overall on the Bulls right now? They have on this Thursday, the trade deadline coming up, so talk about Lonzo Ball maybe in the mix for the team and everything. Do you think that's a move that the Bulls should make right now, or do you think that do you think they should be pressing at all, to really get into the playoffs? Or should they just go more about the whole sort of analyzing the whole, the roster that they have now and maybe just setting up for the offseason? What are your thoughts overall?
I think the future has to take precedent, even though I'd love to see a Knicks Bulls kind of 8-9 play-in or any kind of battle there. And Derek came back today. Derek Rose came back today. I guess he had COVID. He had he said he had COVID pretty bad. I mean, wouldn't that be fun to see that kind of be a matchup here? I love those. You want to talk about matchups? That would be fantastic. The future has to be their priority. You've seen at times this year some great things. It is amazing what happens when you bring in a coach the caliber of Donovan and how much a difference that really makes. This is a roster 22 wins I think they finished with before the COVID hit, and they were all over the place. They were not really unified. It was crazy. You've seen what a good coach can do and what a good coach can bring out to a point where you can actually talk playoffs this year with a group that they pretty much just brought back the same. Although I'll say this, Garrett Temple was a really good acquisition and a great veteran. And also another thing, look at what Thaddeus Young is doing. I mean, last year was terrible. I mean, last year it was tough. He didn't know where his minutes were coming from. He's a bona fide, you're seeing the Thaddeus Young that, I saw in Indianapolis and that I heard about from those people who loved him with the Pacers. You're seeing him, become a really viable player and the guy that everybody hoped they would be. And those veteran guys have really helped a really young starting lineup come together. But the future has to be priority. If they can get Lonzo, I think it's a great move to have a solid guy right there at the top, a good defender, which you can pair with Zach. Fantastic. If they can find a way to do it, I don't know how much they're going to have to give up to get it. I saw one report, Satoransky and a couple second rounders. Kind of take that. I mean, if they would do it, I think Sato actually has been a nice addition, since Billy's made some jumps with the starting lineup. I thought he's done a really good job, and he was actually a really good signing the Bulls made, one of the last ones under Pax. The future has to be the priority, and evaluating it has to be the priority, not just shipping off a player just to do so. If they've got to remain with the roster and they've got to take another year, you've got to prioritize the future. The playoffs, sure, it's great. It'd be fun. It'd be good. But are they going to be able to offer a competition to the Sixers? No. To the Bucks?
Yeah.
No. You're basically getting into the playoffs to win maybe one playoff game. And it's not like it's been this thing where, okay, I hate to go back to Indiana, but, the Pacers kind of bottomed out after the whole Artest, the Jackson, after that kind of era phased out. They made the playoffs as an 8 seed, and that meant something because that was a monument to them because they'd been building up a little bit to get that in Paul George's first year and with Granger. That's not the case here. They're in the first year of a rethinking of the franchise under two very creative people in Karnisovas and with Mark Eversley. They need to take all the evaluation. If they can get Lonzo Ball and not have to give up a ton, that's great. But the priority should be figuring out, is Lowry in your future plans? What can become of Wendell Carter Jr.? Because you've not seen his leap, and obviously he dealt with another injury this year. Where will Kobe White slide in? Where's he going to be? Where is his potential going to be most realized? And then eventually figure out if Zach is the man. We know Zach's a great player. Zach's an all-star. Zach has taken his game to another level. But is there another level? Can he become the max player? Can he become the face of your franchise? Can he move up into there's an all-star level, and then there's the A-guy level. There is that level. I don't know if that makes sense. There's that level. Is he ready to take that leap to go to that next level? These are things that need to be evaluated, and a playoff spot or overpaying for a trade can take priority. And frankly, I don't think it will. And we'll see. If they get Lonzo Ball, I think it will be a deal that benefits the Bulls greatly, and they're not going to have to give up a ton for their future.
Yeah, I think they should prioritize that and, like say, do it in a way that, like you say, they don't have to give up too much, especially because you still don't know exactly if you're going to be able to secure him over the summer because he'll be a restricted free agent. So, that's you have to step lightly with that. But, I think that would be something that particularly they would do if they want to energize the team and maybe the fan base for particularly a playoff run this year. But I'm kind of like you, Larry. Like, I could take or leave that them doing that, and probably one extra benefit from not making the playoffs is being in the lottery in a year where there could be a few nice players that could help them out again. Another lottery player we've seen, they hit pretty well with Patrick Williams. What if you could get an Evan Mobley, possibly in the next draft or something like that, or a Joseph Kuniga, who's playing in that G League Elevate team. There's some options here, or really shoot holler like a Jalen Suggs. Maybe you wouldn't even maybe have to get Lonzo Ball or really have to worry about keeping him over the summer if you get something like a Jalen Suggs coming out of the draft. Right? But that's really reaching for this guy. But what about the Hawks right quick? It seems like they've stumbled onto some hard times recently. They had a really good start, but what's going on with them lately?
Well, they hit the wall with the great teams. You knew coming into the season, you figured you would have, Tampa, Dallas, and the Predators would be right there at the top. They faced all three of those.
They seem like they played nothing but the Panthers and the Lightning for the past 3 weeks.
Yeah, and they've been beat up. And they had Dallas a little bit in there too. They were able to get a win against Dallas. They played decently against Dallas so far. Dallas, again, another COVID case where they had an early season, so you're kind of curious to see what's there. It's catching up with them a little bit. They're playing some of the better teams, and these better teams are more physical. They've got more experience, and they're able to take advantage of mistakes. So, like, on Saturday afternoon, the Hawks actually played pretty well. They put a lot of shots on goal. Vasilevsky stops them all. Hawks make a couple mistakes, and it's 3-0 when maybe it could have been a 2-1 game where the Hawks are leading. There's a lot to it. You're still missing Taves, who's a big part of it. Kane, he does his thing, and DeBrinket's obviously rising. But you're still figuring out what you're going to do with those other lines, those other guys, and it's this building of a team. And they had a nice little run there, against teams that were kind of on their level. Now they've gone up there and they've gotten beaten up a little bit. You saw some goalie consistency where you had some great play from Lankinen and you had some great play from Subban. Go up against some better teams where their defensive mistakes are made in front of them. They're giving up a few more goals. So the goalie play hasn't been quite there as they faced higher competition. What you're seeing in my mind is things just kind of evening out a little bit. If you look at the record, they're 14, 13, and 5. Maybe they've got another tie in there. That's about where you thought they might be in a best-case scenario. They played some of the teams really well. They had a great February, but they're still figuring themselves out. Similar to the Bulls, they're still figuring themselves out. The Hawks still don't have a number one goalie. They're still rotating goalies, and you might see Colin Delia, get his shot here coming up, especially as they've got to go up against Florida again this week. So they're kind of figuring themselves out in a lot of ways, and that process has played out to where you've had success. And now this month, frankly, it's been ugly.
Yeah. It makes sense because like I said, that start was really just surprising in a way. Nobody really took them for being a team that could be 6-7 games above 500 entering the season. But like I say, they just really have come back to earth a bit. They still possibly could be in the postseason mix, but like you say, them not having really a go-to goalie by committee, that's not going to really work well in the postseason, I would think. So, I guess they just got more that they got to do in their building, in their rebuilding. So let's see. I'm glad that Subban has straightened out a bit though, because he looked pretty shaky at the beginning of the year, and he seems to have contributed more. And just knowing him as a brother PK and everything, and having a brother in the goalie there, there's nothing wrong with that here in Chicago. It's good to see. So hopefully, like I say, hopefully they could get something going again with against some of this tougher competition. They've seen them enough. Maybe they can rally. Maybe they could rally in some of their future matches. I think they got the Panthers again this Thursday. Yeah, so we'll see. And
it would be great to find a number one goalie. You're right. If Lankinen, obviously you've seen him come up through the system. He had some great play internationally. And then Subban, who coming into the year, he's one of my probably most interesting stories to watch because bounced around a little bit in the NHL with Crawford leaving and then eventually retiring. He gets a shot to make it his net. So really curious to see what he does here as he finishes out. A little bit of a rough start, although it's funny, in that first game, he made one of the saves of the year against the Lightning that I think is still probably up there for one of the saves in the NHL for the year. Okay. But he straightens himself out in February, and then, now a little bit of struggle here and there. So again, really curious to see, specifically with the goaltending position, how that ends up working out for the end of the year.
Okay. Now I'm gonna leave us with the Bears because with baseball, I'm just starting to watch baseball again. I watched a couple games this weekend, and pretty much I know in general what's going on with the Cubs and the Sox, of course, but I'm just glad that they're both back in action, and we're going to be able to see them with some fans in the stands coming up in a couple weeks. So we'll see more about them coming in the future. Maybe we'll bring you on to talk baseball when the season is officially in order, but we got to leave. I hate to leave on a down note, but there is the Bears.
We have to, right? I mean, we have to.
They're the elephant in the room left. So, what's your thoughts on just what's going on with them? And they bring in Dalton, and we seem to be resigned to this fate now, where it's like, they're going to make the decisions they're going to make, and I don't know if they're still hung up on trying to make something happen with getting Wilson. Like it seems like a fairy tale right now. Like, but what are your thoughts on the way that they're doing business right now, and how does this set this team up for the near future? Is there any hope to be had for this team?
Well, they'll need to have their defense carry them probably again. It's pretty much like some might look at this and go, duh. Well, that's what they're going to have to do. You lose Kyle Fuller. That's terrible because Fuller not only is a homegrown guy who has developed into one of the best corners in the league, but you lose one of the best corners in the league. And
Fangio didn't waste a moment to get him, did he?
Not at all. And he's smart, And remember, his best development came under Fangio. We had the first year in the Tucker defense and with those guys. Although Desai was on the staff. Desai was on the staff when he did join, so he's the only one who was across it the whole time. Kyle, homegrown guy, so he's going to fan. I'm going to assume that Kyle's going to have a pretty good year. And things change, obviously, but you got to replace the cornerback. Trufant has, again, Pro Bowl guy, has been there. Injuries have been a big problem. 17 games the last 2 years. So you're going to need him to be good, or you're going to have to draft some guy. Give Pace credit. Jalen Johnson's pretty good. I mean, he did a really good job. He had rookie moments, but until he got injured, he had done a fantastic job filling that area. But you got to find a cornerback. Who knows what's going to happen with Hicks? I guess now he's off the trading block, but he's not going to be happy. Robert Quinn, you've got to get something out of him. I mean, that signing does not look great right now. He did not have a productive year last year at all. And you got Khalil on the other side, and Khalil is Khalil. And if he can stay healthy and he can find himself, he can be an extremely effective guy. Again, you got to have, and you have Eddie back there in the secondary. So you've got a defense there that can still do something. Offensively, you are paying, here it is. If I put $5,000 down on a number 8 seed to win the NCAA championship, and I gamble something heavy, and it hits, I'm rich. But if I don't, I'm not.
You just lost $5,000, yeah.
Ryan Pace is a gambler. He has had conviction with his picks. He talks about that word. He is not afraid to make moves because he believes in those moves. But the problem is when you make those moves and you give up a lot for those moves and it doesn't happen, you're in trouble. So the Bears are lying in the bed that Pace made. He traded up to get Trubisky. Trubisky did not work out. He didn't work out because of himself. He didn't work out because the Bears could not figure out a way to make it work. How much is the percentage on each side is up to determination. But either way, the guy that you expected to fill a position that's been a problem for the Bears for over a half a century failed. You are now left in this predicament where either A, you got to gamble a lot of your future on picking up a guy like Russell Wilson or Watson, or you've got to sign some guy that's going to fit in the cap that might not be the guy you want, that might be on the back half of his career that you're going to have to hope does really well. This is a scenario that the Bears have put themselves in with salary cap as well when they push to get into the window. But again, they missed on a quarterback. And when you miss on a quarterback, it forces you to get desperate. It forces you to give Nick Foles a lot of money. It forces you to make that trade. And now it doesn't work out. They made their bed, man, and unfortunately, they have to lie in it. When you take great risks, when you gamble, and it doesn't work out, you leave yourself in the situation where they are right now, which is with Andy Dalton and with Nick Foles. I guess they still could pull a draft day trade, but in many ways, do you want the Bears to draft a quarterback at this point? Do you trust them to make that move? Do you want them to give 3 or 4 number 1 picks up in case Pace doesn't come back and you leave your next general manager with, I can't say you can't build a team in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round, but that's pretty bad if you do it. You gamble, you lose, and you get a Bears team right now that on paper is probably 7 to 9 wins, 6 to 9, 6 to 8. Yeah. And that's where you are. That's
Pretty much. I was gonna ask if you had any type of ideal situation for those first couple of days of the draft. I think they had like 3 picks before 90, but
how about I like to see them get a tackle. They need a tackle. You got to make sure that line is solid. You got to fix the line. And the line did some good things last year toward the end. You're going to have Daniels. You're going to have Whitehair back. You're going to have a Fetty back, and he's a solid guy. He's a rotational guy. He played both guard and tackle. Sam Mustafa is also on the line. I thought he did a pretty good job last year. He's the center, versatile guy. I thought he did a good job last year. Leno's there unless they cut him. Why not get another tackle? Rayshawn from Northwestern, Rayshawn Slater. I've been blanking on that, but why not him out of Northwestern? Guy I've thought about. Maybe
he may go pretty high though. I've seen him in some mocks like towards the beginning of the year he was being placed more in that 20 range, but it seems like more and more he's getting towards that top 10.
To be fair with you, that's probably the dream scenario for me. Do you want to go trade up? Trey Lance is out there. I've kind of liked him a little bit, what he's been able to do. At this point, I think it'd be smart for them to sit down there. If you can get Slater at tackle, that's awesome. I think it'd be great. You get an offensive tackle, and maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round, you want to grab a quarterback, so be it. Remember, you're probably going to have to take a corner at some point. You're going to have to develop somebody at that position. So you've got that there. You might have to go look for another receiver because I don't know what's going to happen with Allen Robinson. Robinson signed his tender, but he signed his tag. Excuse me. You don't know what you're going to do there. So you've got places to add in. I think right now at this point to try to trade up for anything, I'd keep the picks for the future. I'd keep the picks. Part of me when they didn't get Wilson was somewhat relieved that they didn't give up 3 first rounders in the future because, you got to have some future, right? And Russell Wilson's huge, A-level guy, great level guy. But at this point, I didn't think they were going to get him. And right now it's looking like they might have a GM switch. It'd be nice for that GM to come in and have an ability to at least stack a future in there. Again, they made the bed. And this is the best case scenario for me would be is that Dalton plays really well, that you get Allen. The best case for me is they would have signed Galladay. And then you have Robinson, Galladay, Mooney.
You have a chance there. Yeah.
You draft your tackle. You have Montgomery, who I consider a good running back. Cole Kmet, who I think has done well, as I think there could be something there. Okay. Yeah. All right. You could dream a little bit. You could dream a bit and say, hey, this offense could be good enough to score the 25 points a game that you might need for the defense. And then maybe you got something there. If Galladay were there, and I mean this sincerely, if Galladay were there and they would have a chance to draft a running back, maybe I feel a little bit better about things. But at this point, Anthony Miller's kind of, he's a question mark. You don't know what's going to be there. Obviously he was in trade talks. There's too many
on the team.
Yeah, and there again, I just don't know. It just in my mind, they lost on some gambles, and you're kind of stuck where you have to hope that things work out, and that hope is a big ask right now.
Yeah. We'll see with those Bears. This has been a lot of hope that's been deferred right now. A lot of dreams as well. Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see with the Bears, and we'll see what's going on with you in the future, Larry. How can folks out there, follow your work and follow you online?
It's Hawley Sports on Twitter, HAWLEY Sports, all one word. You can follow me on Instagram. It's LHAWLEY80, LHawley80. And I'm on Facebook. It's open. So if you want a friend and talk, I'm more than happy to do it. So
yeah, we all use some more friends out there, man. Definitely, you're a good friend to have, Larry. Appreciate you, and definitely look forward to speaking with you again, man, about what's going on. You still doing those beer reviews and all that stuff as well?
You better believe I am. I did my my double feature for St. Patrick's Day for St. Patrick's Day, I love green beer. It's my thing, but I always have it light, nothing complicated. So I always do old style. That's what I've done every year. So it's still stout season. I've got a couple of stouts left. The weather's warmed up, but I want to get to a few of those before it does. But always looking for new breweries, always looking for new beers. If you have a suggestion, please pass it along. Some of the all-stars that I've had this year, the Harold's 83 Honey Ale I had for the first time in cans. It was fantastic.
Okay. Yeah.
Great story behind it. And I love that beer. Some other ones I've had, Bourbon County never misses this winter, so I've enjoyed that. I had the Southside Irish Red beer that was really good last week for there. So, no, I still do love and beer, and we'll take any suggestion. I'm looking for – so I only do Illinois brewery, usually local or Illinois breweries, so I try to get attention to them, especially during the pandemic. Any local brewery, I've got breweries I want to try. I'm in the city. I don't have a car, so I go as far as kind of my legs can take me to get there, but I'm trying to get out to as many. So if you have a suggestion, please hit me up.
That's great. It's great just to shine a light, like you say, on local breweries. And, Chicago has become a great place for, beer development and everything. And a lot of good options around here. So definitely follow, if anything, if you like beer, definitely follow Larry for those reviews and such as well, to stay up on what's going on in Chicago breweries and everything. So it's getting to be that time. We can start drinking outside with no fear and anything. It's really, really looking forward to the next few months as things open up some more. So well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, Larry, and definitely hope you have a good spring and summer and everything. Like I said, we'll definitely keep up with you as things go forward here with baseball. I want to get your thoughts on the Cubs and the Sox as they go along. Yeah,
thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate the time. This was wonderful. Like I said, you do a wonderful job. So thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. This was wonderful. I look forward to doing it again.
I'm glad you enjoyed yourself, man. I did as well. Great talking to you, and great talking to y'all on Facebook. Appreciate the support and everything. Definitely support our friends such as Larry here and everybody else on our station, our outlets here. We just had a new episode of Second City Sports. You can see those on YouTube now on Mondays and Fridays. We get those up sooner. And definitely keep up with our podcast as well on WARR on Anchor, distributed to all the major podcast platforms. Show us love, and we'll show it right back. But in the meantime, for Larry and myself, definitely wish you adieu and enjoy the rest of the tournament and everything that's going on in sports.